Hey, for another shot fired.
Copy, additional shot fired.
Shot fired. He's shooting at us.
Suspect shooting at officer.
Suspect down. He's at the base of the stairs. White t-shirt, white male.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Shots Fired podcast. I'm Mark Rudlich.
And I'm Kyle Schoberg. Today, guys, we are here at the TAC Ops Conference in New York. I got to tell you, this has been an awesome event. There are a ton of vendors here, a lot of guests, guys from all over the state of New York, the East Coast. This has been fantastic. Mark and I actually wrapped up 2 classes that we taught. Awesome turnout. Thank you to everybody that came to our classes. We really appreciate you guys, your feedback, all the nice things that you guys had to say. Really, we seriously appreciate it. Hey, we are kicking off the first episode actually here at the TAC Ops Conference. We got a cool podcast studio set up, and we snagged the keynote speaker for the event, David Atkins. David, thank you for carving out time from your day. I know you are very busy. I know you're on a time limit here. You got to go down and do a keynote speak.
Yeah.
Can you introduce everybody or introduce yourself to everybody? Tell them who you are, and we'll kick this off.
Absolutely. And thank you guys. Thank you, Mark. How amazing what you both have done. And it's really an honor to come here and really to talk to all of you and just share a little bit about my story. So my background, I was a New York State Trooper for 22 years here in New York. I rose through the ranks of the state police, retired as a captain, and ran all state police operations for the entire county of Westchester County. We handled about 400,000 to 500,000 911 calls a year in our dispatch center for the entire county. Through my career, I was a trooper on patrol, was a first responder on 9/11, which is something that's near and dear to me. Became a lieutenant, ran a lot of undercover operations, and then ultimately, retired as a captain with the state police. And then, at the same time, the last 10 years, my career to just get more healthy and fit, I started working out at home, doing a program called P90X, and did not know that there was a business side of things. Just wanted to get healthy and fit, and people would just kind of like, Dave, what are you doing? And would just, what are you doing? But they did joke, you know how that's law enforcement, Dave, what are those Richard Simmons programs that you're doing and stuff like that? And I just, I just started sharing it, and little did I know there was a business, and I grew it to a pretty large business around the country, and was able to pay off, a large quantity in debt and build a business, and opened a door for me to be a keynote speaker, a motivational speaker, and just share my message to empower other people through motivation, inspiration, especially in the line of work being here today, because, to humanize what, law enforcement goes through and the stresses of the job, and what I did to flip the channel in my head to see life through a different lens. Cause it's very easy to fall into, the stress of the job every day.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit before the show, and, we shared with each other that there's so much more out there than just being a cop and taking all the life lessons you learn of being a police officer or any first responder, and using those lessons and going out and doing other things with them, right? And we very much encourage, police officers and first responders to take the leap and become entrepreneurs and take those life lessons and turn them into something. Before we hit on all that, let's, we've always been wanting to talk to somebody that actually was on scene for 9/11, and you're actually the first guest that we've been able to talk to about that.
Yeah.
Can you share that with us?
No, absolutely. So I remember exactly where I was. I was actually in service training with the state police in a classroom, and when everything started happening in New York, I was about, my barracks, state police barracks, was about 45 minutes north of Midtown Manhattan. That's how long it took to get there. So I was in service training. We all got ordered to go back to the barracks, just wanted to get down there to ground zero. And I actually got sent down there the next day. And, my story I always share is that, you guys remember back in the day, those Kodak cameras in the aluminum foil that the 1 hour photo to jump off. So I grabbed one of those, and I brought it down with me. And I remember when I went down to ground zero, I was there the following day. My assignment was escorts. So I was escorting supplies and personnel on the rubble in and out of ground zero. And I remember getting there, and I got down to ground zero. And I remember when people watched it on TV, all they saw was just what you see in front of you on the TV, right? And that's all you can see. And I remember spinning around and looking up as far and as high as the eyes can see a pile of rubble for 360 degrees. And that's when I knew that there basically were not going to be any survivors. And I remember leaving there, not leaving my assignment. That afternoon, I was driving back and I was blocks away from ground zero. And I remember looking up at a building that had no damage, except I saw metal beams, gigantic metal beams that were 20, 30, 40 stories in the air that were sticking out of buildings like spears.
Wow.
And that's when I knew like this metal went end over end through the air and just penetrated into buildings. And I remember seeing that and realizing like that was what was flying through the air.
Wow.
And that first couple weeks I was down there, and I bring up the Kodak camera because I never took one picture because I was so caught up in my assignment, the magnitude. I forgot I had it. So all my memories are up here, you know, and to this day, the hard thing is that I'm in the 9/11 first responder program. Every year I go through a pretty intense physical chest x-rays because there's still people. One of my friends, my classmates, you know, rest in peace, Ryan Fortini, died from a 9/11 related cancer. And I still have to be monitored because people are still getting sick today. And even last year's sickness, they called me the next day. They were like, David, we found some spots on your lungs. And you know, put me into a little bit of a panic, you know, and like I shared with you guys earlier, I like to say life doesn't always fire a warning shot. And for me, like everything's normal until it's not, right? And then went through rigorous testing and ended up being nothing. But it's still something that even now today, all these years later, I still, you know, I'm still haunted with it.
Well, we monitor the Officer Down Memorial page, and it lists all the officers that have unfortunately passed away, and it's still every year one is coming up. One this year for the loss of 9/11 incident.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, I was in New York last year for the first time ever, and a life goal of mine has always been to go to ground zero. Like I remember exactly where I was too, right? We're in California. I was in my mom's bedroom when watching it on TV, I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. And I had the opportunity last year to make it to ground zero. And I tell you what, I walked up the stairs and just seeing the fountains and everyone's names on the, the edges of the fountains there was pretty surreal to me. And I did the same thing. I just stood there and I just looked up thinking, these massive buildings were literally standing right where I'm at. The history of 9/11 and the wars and all of that started just right here.
there.
It's insane. It
makes
powerful.
It's very powerful. And even when I go down there and I went through the museum, I don't know if you went through the museum, which I hear they may be closing because it relies on, you know, funding with donations and stuff. And it was just going through that, you know, can give me chills and going back through it again.
Totally.
But it was, I still think about it today, but I will never forget those things of spears. I'll never forget the pile of rubble. And I remember my family, I'm like, you guys don't understand. Like, you're just seeing what's in front of you. It's everywhere as far as you can see and so high. I don't know, you know, how many survivors they're going to find, but it was a powerful part of my career.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing.
No, of course.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what are you doing today? I mean, we talked a little bit before, but you've authored a book. You published a book. You're here as a keynote speaker for the TAC Ops conference.
Right.
What is your message to the folks that you're speaking to, and what led you to be here?
You know, the title's Resilience in Law Enforcement. You know, and I never realized 10, 11, 12 years ago I would ever end up where I am today. You know, but I'm very big that, you know, work with what you have with where you are, because what you have is plenty. I think so often when we try to improve our life or get better, we're thinking about how do I get to step 12 instead of realizing just take that first step. And for me, it started with I need to get my health in better order. You know, my wife and I, you know, were a little bit overweight. We were stressed out, exhausted all the time, working a lot of hours in law enforcement, which we all do, feeling stressed all the time, overwhelmed. So I just started doing my workouts at home, P90X, and you know, and the guys were laughing and joking. I said, Richard Simmons, you doing those Richard Simmons workouts? You know, but I got in great shape. And at the time, my wife and I were 6 figures in debt, living paycheck to paycheck. I think a big thing for so many people is that as we make more, we spend more.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you make more money. I mean, I was making a great salary. My wife was a teacher with her master's degree, but we would just overextend ourselves. Stupid choices. I made them. And I finally, when I realized and I got in great shape and I started sharing it with people, I started seeing a vision that there's people I can help. There's people I can give back. And I at first was just telling them, go to Google, get P90X. And then I started seeing people build this direct sales business, which, my typical brothers and sisters in law enforcement, you in that pyramid scheme, and I went through that typical thing. I know you guys probably did it, but the thing that I realized is I had a vision for something bigger, and the only person you need permission from to be better in your life is yourself.
Yeah, no doubt.
And you have to let, not other people's opinions are not your reality. Mm-hmm. So for me, I saw something that others couldn't see, and that's all I needed. And I kept my head down, and at night I worked my business after work, and I grew it to a team of 1,400 people around the world, United Kingdom, Canada, and paid off 6 figures in debt. And it just grew. And what started happening is through my success of things I learned, one big thing is mindset. I realized that every single day we wake up, we put the news on, we consume the news, and then we turn more of the news on, we read the newspaper, we scroll social media that's full of negativity. And I flipped that upside down and said, you know what, no more. I'm going to plug into what I need to hear so I know what's going on. Yeah. But 10 to 15 minutes a day, I'm going to listen to YouTube videos and I'm going to read books that are going to fuel my mind to live a more fulfilling life, to how to be more positive, to not get stressed out. And I followed, whether it was Les Brown or Eric Thomas or Tony Robbins or Brendan Bouchard. And I basically blocked out the noise and I just started thinking differently because you know what? We can't control what happens to us every single day. We can't control the protest. We can't control the pandemic, but you know what? You can control how you react. Yeah. Your attitude is a choice. Your mindset is a choice. So for me, I am very guarded with my inner circle of, surrounding myself with people that I like to call them engines in my life, not anchors. And, every morning I get a text from there's a group of guys. We send positive message, make today a great day, live after your dreams, be a great husband, kiss your kids goodnight. And those are the people I want in my life because it's very easy in law enforcement to go home stressed out. And then we put the news on. And the thing is this, the minority may have the majority voice right now, but that's not the case. Yeah. People really do support us. Yeah. But if you live a life by default, where you let life determine how you feel, that's what 98% of the world does. You're going to be stressed out.
Totally. Yeah.
But a 2% mindset, the life by design is where you're intentional to fuel your mind with something that's going to make you feel good. So whether it's while you're in the car listening to a book that's going to help you think differently, because I think too often we just kind of go through the flow of life. So this all led to my business, Beachbody. I started speaking in a local library, sharing my story to a dozen people. And then it just kept growing to a couple hundred, to 1,000, and then 20,000 people in the NFL Superdome. And again, I never saw this coming. And it was a gift that I believe that God put in my path. And I retired at 43 and I wasn't, it's a young age. Some people thought I was crazy, but I realized I had a bigger purpose. I had a bigger calling. And that's why I decided it's time to go and share my message and inspire and empower other people. And then I wrote a book about what I like to say, the leveled up life, the no excuse blueprint to live a life up to your fullest potential. And it's just pillars and principles to apply to help you live, a better life, to feel good, to be more fulfilled.
What are some of those pillars? Like, what is your morning routine? I know you said you spend the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But you wrote a book on it. What are those?
Yeah. So my morning routine, guys, it's very religious. I'm up at 4:30 my alarm goes off at 4:30 every morning, even on, and I work for myself now as an entrepreneur. I get up at 4:30. I go downstairs. I take my pre-workout drink. And then I sit down. I do 10 minutes of guided meditation. Then I do 10 minutes of silent meditation. So that's 20 minutes. And again, that's something, I can't do that, that hokey pokey stuff like that. That was me when I was told, but if my mind's not right, like I mentioned earlier, you can be in great shape and eat the healthiest foods, but if it's not right up here, the most important muscle, that's it. So I do 20 minutes of that. And then I do prayer every morning, and then I journal, gratitude journal. I write down, positive daily affirmations. I write down things I'm grateful for every single day, because the opposite of depression and anxiety is having gratitude, being grateful, like being grateful to, I did not know you guys yesterday, and I'm in your path now. And there today, like I can journal that I met you two guys and what you're doing and the gratitude. And I just start the day with gratitude. And then after that, after I journal, after I pray, after I meditate, then I go work out 6 days a week. And I do this before my kids get up. I do that because I feel like win the morning, win the day.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way the rest of the day. Something will happen at work. Yeah. You'll get stuck with overtime. And for me, like I mentioned, I want my kids to get the best of me, not what's left of me. And I feel that by me taking care of myself, it's not selfish, it's selfless, because now I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better police officer. I handle stress better. You know why? Because I took care of my mind and I took care of my body. Totally agree with that.
Unfortunately, a lot of guys and gals in our career, we get stuck in like that rut of of negativity. You're going to negative stuff all the time, and you might get stuck on a patrol team, right? And I'm sure everyone listening has experienced this. I know all of us three have. You get maybe just one negative person on your patrol shift or your patrol team, right? And those people can really just suck you down. It can suck the whole team down, right? They're a cancer of the team. And I've fallen victim to that. But we need more positivity and the message that you're spreading to law enforcement. You come from a law enforcement world. And we were talking also before the show, you were mentioning when you were going through the levels of command, right? Lieutenant to captain, your bandwidth was stretched because you're training a new lieutenant, you're becoming a new captain, you're trying to learn that job. You've got all these things going on in your life and you found yourself struggling. Yeah. And you shared that.
Absolutely.
With us. I want to share that with people because I think it's important. And Mark, you had mentioned it. Yeah. I'm sure this show is, we probably drive in a lot of younger cops and, they don't get to hear those things from a command staff level. Yeah. And a lot of times, especially in today's day and age, admin gets kind of shit on. Yeah. Everything seems to be the admin's fault. I want to share, if you don't mind, share your struggles, being in charge, being at the top, at the command level, and what you experienced and went through.
No, absolutely. So for me, when I was a lieutenant at the time, in this exact moment, so I was a lieutenant, I ran multiple undercover units for Southern New York, from organized crime, money laundering, labor and racketeering, auto theft. So I had a busy position. I just got promoted to captain, and the way the state police does it, you find out you're promoted and usually it's effective, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. So there's a transition phase. So during that transition phase, I was training the incoming lieutenant. I'll never forget the day. I was training the incoming lieutenant. At the same time, I was being trained and brought up to speed on what's going on in the county. Yeah. At the same time, my business was kind of tanking, had a rough year. It was moving. It was during the time that Beachbody, we went as a society from like DVDs to digital. So the business had to transition from DVDs to being an online platform. So I took a big hit. We retired my wife 7 years ago, back, it must have been about 4 or 5 years before that, to be home with our 3 daughters. So we relied, our business was putting food on the table, as was my job. So our business was struggling. I was concerned about that. I was dealing with the 2 new training, the new guy training, being the trainee. Yeah. My wife was across the country at a conference for our business, to better her own, better her own self. And I'll never forget, I got a call that they thought my daughter broke her wrist at school. I have 3 daughters. And I couldn't keep up anymore. I was burning a candle at both ends. The anxiety was through the roof. And I found myself dry heaving in the bathroom, just burnt out. And I remember telling my wife, I said, I am going to work just as hard on myself as I did on all the goals I've achieved in my life. And I promised her that. And it took a lot and courage to pick the phone up and to say, I need to speak to somebody. And I did not allow myself to get to the point of where suicide was on my mind. It was not, but I recognized right away, I can't keep up this pace. Yeah. And I asked for help. And I know there's the stigma, and the jobs do a great job. You can call EAP, Employee Assistance Program, and you can do that, but there is that concern. So for me, I gave myself permission to talk to somebody outside the job to just help me manage, because in law enforcement, male, female, we're alpha males, alpha females. We're always the providers, right? To protect and provide for the family, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. And for me, like, I finally recognized, like, I just need to help navigate this time in my life. And it was a game changer. And that's where I learned about meditation. That's where the person I work with was like, David, you need to start meditating before you give yourself a heart attack. Like, that's what it came down to. So I got over the, I can't meditate and my mind races. No, I started with 3 minutes and it was life changing and got myself back on track, and it's okay. And it's something I'm going to share today. And, you know, and I'll be honest, I personally, when I was starting to speak and still work, I probably wouldn't have shared it a couple of years ago because you worried about, you know, I had bosses too. But right now I am so past worrying about what other people think. I am on helping other people live their best life. And if I can help one person that maybe needs help, even maybe it's just anxiety. I mean, cops don't get called to good situations.
Nope.
It's always a negative environment. And then you go home and you turn the news on, and then you think the world is ending, and you don't realize how much that affects you subconsciously. So you have to have a program and be intentional about it. You can't leave your growth and your mindset by accident. You got to be intentional about it. And for me, that's what I did. And it's okay to do that.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, I love that story. And you had mentioned it, Mark, like, you don't hear those stories from command staff members, right? And so, I don't know, I think people need to reflect and understand that even people in your position or people that are up high in the ranks, you know, they're struggling too. And you got to give people grace. Right? Like, if you don't know what people are going through, learn to give people grace.
Or give yourself grace.
Yeah, give yourself grace.
Give yourself grace. It's okay. You're human. Like, that was the thing told to me, David, you are human. What you are going through is human. It's just that it takes a lot of courage to say, hey, can I talk to somebody? Yeah. And it doesn't need to be to the point where you're thinking of suicide. Because for me, like I said, it was far from that. It was just at a point that, like, I'm exhausted all the time. I'm stressed all the time. I'm bickering at my wife. I'm short with my kids. This is not the way to live. Yeah.
We both experienced the same thing. I mean, we had to make that leap and contact, you know, EAP, and same thing, had to bypass the stigma. And, you know, we actually both did EMDR therapy, and we talk a lot about that. And so post-trauma therapy. So it's great. People need people like us, like you, to share their stories. It just takes that to get someone to flip that switch and go, hey, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes.
Absolutely. And in hindsight, you know, I shared that when my best friend was a SWAT operator, state police. He was shot and killed. And, you know, and I should have got help the year after that. My wife, looking back in 2007, his anniversary was actually April 25th, 2 days ago. Looking back, I definitely needed help, but I didn't know at the time. I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the mindset to recognize that, but it was hard. You know, you guys know, I don't need to tell you, but 3 days before on the phone, joking about a family vacation, and 3 days later crying over his dead body in a violent shootout. And, you know, I like to say life doesn't always fire a warning shot. And we have to stop waiting for things in our life to be convenient or to have more time or be less busy to go after goals and dreams or better yourself, because you may not be here tomorrow, you know?
Well, we know you're running out of time.
Yeah.
I know you got to go down and do a sound check and get the keynote speaking thing on. Where can people find you? Social media, your website, and how can they purchase your book?
No, thank you. So my book, The Leveled Up Life, is on Amazon. You can. It was published last summer. I'm all over social media, my Instagram, and I'm going to say this twice, David_W_Atkins, because I have a lot of impersonators. The last 2 years, I have somebody that's been impersonating me on hundreds of accounts, but you'll know the real account again, David_W_Atkins, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. You'll find me. You just can Google my name. You'll find me online, and my book on Amazon. And guys, thank you, man, for your work, for what you guys do and spreading the message, because I would not be able to share my story without you guys.
All right. We'll take your information. We'll put it on our website.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll put it all in the show notes. You guys can look in the description, and we'll put it all down there. Yeah. Make sure you guys go check out his book, The Leveled Up Life. I'm definitely going to read it. That is for sure. And I appreciate your time. Really.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
meeting you.
Thank you.
David, make sure you take your wallet.
Yeah.
When
The guys now coming here, I left my shield and ID at a table, and luckily it was safe with SWAT operators. But you guys know, you leave your shield somewhere, what do you got a little bit of a panic?
Check everything.
You know, cops are bad about taking things that aren't theirs.
Right.
Would have made it theirs.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Bye-bye.
Stay tuned, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye bye. Thanks.